So I'm still trying to figure out the whole Adam and Eve thing when it came to Genesis in the Bible. Um, God supposedly had made Adam and Eve in His image, which confuses me all the time. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a simple answer, or if it's more complicated than we think. Obviously, typically, the first thing we're going to think is that we look like God. That's what I'm getting from it, obviously, which is the first thing you would, with common sense, you would think, okay, made in his image, if we interpreted that correctly anyway, we look like God. Us humans, humanity, we look like Him. Um, and then it gets me because it's like there's the human evolution also, and I do believe in human evolution. Shows science at times tells us sometimes it tells us that humans have an evolution from what we used to be. We look different from what we used to be. We probably look similar to monkeys, but mixed in with cavemen, something like that, like Neanderthals, basically, which are different because we were nothing like monkeys. At least that's what we can guess, because today we don't see monkeys evolving. They're still monkeys forever, but we can assume that they were just creatures that kind of look like us, and that's how I assume us compared to God is that we kind of look like Him. Monkeys are kind of made in our image, right? I think so. That's how I kind of like look at all this stuff. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I'm just trying to intelligently think about all this, and maybe anybody who knows anything could educate me a bit so I can learn. Otherwise, this is just my guess. I believe that I guess God has an image, which it's so hard to believe that because He's supposed to be perfect and almighty powerful. I imagine that God would have no shape the way I think of what makes sense to me. Doesn't mean I'm right though. I'm aware that I still could be wrong. But what makes sense to me is that God would have no shape. I mean, I would think that in life He would have absolutely no figure. But and He wouldn't want us to know that He had a figure if He did, or if He doesn't, He wouldn't really care about that, I would think. So that's why when I read that scripture, made in His image, makes me think, okay, maybe He could also just be meaning that whatever He can do, we have those traits attached to our appearance. He can see everything, we have eyes. He can hear everything, we have ears. He can sense and smell everything, we have a nose. And him sensing everything, well, I guess that gives us a brain, a mind, different from animals too. And this is how I tend to take it sometimes. But it can be confusing. Maybe that would mean animals are made in His image too. So I'm not really entirely sure, but still thinking on it. So anyway, that being said, it takes a while to really figure it out, and I'm still trying to figure it out as well. But I believe, I kind of thought God, if He's almighty powerful and He can do anything, I would think that He can shapeshift. And we all have desires, and so I think that maybe God has His own desires too. And who's to say that He does not have His own desirable appearance? I believe He has His own desirable appearance. Maybe He chose one, and maybe He decided then, I will make humanity in this. I will share this desirable appearance with humanity. I think that's probably what He did. That's just what I believe. I don't believe that if He can do anything, I don't believe that He has a shape by default. I don't believe that. I believe he can create his own figure if he wanted to. If he's artistic, he's the king god of art. So why wouldn't he create his own um, physical shape and his own heaven and hell and things like that, his own rules to life? I would think that the living life itself would create its own shape, its own figure in which it plants its own mind inside of, and then that being speaks out from its mouth, and it is God, kind of like the way Jesus was created, actually created on earth. You would think that God basically put Himself in Jesus and gave him a mind and his own body and things like that. That's how I look at it. I think God is just is like, it's hard to describe. It's like a life with a mind of its own, pretty much. And it can do whatever it wants, like the way our brain can do whatever it wants. We can think of anything. We can shapeshift inside our own minds. We can dream things, and we can um, we can do anything and draw anything in our own heads, any image and any action. So I believe that this is kind of like what the living life does, I like to call it. It's like it has a mind of its own, in which we call God. And I believe that maybe he can create what he desires to be his own image. And maybe that's what he had done. He held on it to he held on it long enough, and perhaps said right then and there, when I make humanity, I'm going to make man in my own image. And that's my guess. It's just a guess. So yeah, just to throw that out there. But tell me your thoughts. Who knows? I mean, it's not like the Bible is giving us all the answers. Of course, it wouldn't want to do that, right? I would think that life would be too easy if it did. I think it's just giving us pieces to connect and put together and think about. That's what our minds are for. We're here to figure things out. Life is not necessarily a game to me. It's serious, but it's uh, we have made video games in the form of how life is. There's always a way to lose and a way to win and a way to find something, and there's always further skill to attain. So um yeah, I think that's how life is. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about the fruit that Eve had took a took, and I almost believe that the first humans, I just kept thinking about this day after day, and I believe that maybe human evolution came from when God made humans as like Neanderthals, just creatures. And I truly believe that he probably didn't make humans the way we look today. And people don't talk about this. They don't mention that that's the case. Everybody kind of looks at it as if Christians usually look at it as if when he created humanity, we looked the way that we do today. And since they don't think so intelligently or think outside the box, they stick to that because not only do they stick to that, but they refuse to believe in human evolution now and scientific science at all, really. But what I hate how people separate science from God and from spirituality if you are a Christian or you're religious. I do not believe it makes sense to do that. People believe in that. They believe in separating science from God. But I believe if science is real, which it is, it's right in front of our faces, we named it science. Whatever that process is, that's what God made. Science is just a fucking word, first of all. It's just a word that we made. We made that up. We made up the word science. Whatever happens in life and why it happens, the reasons, the what, when, wheres, and whys, and hows, all of those things put together, all we did was name it. We named it science. That's it. So all of those things are still made by God. So what we named is made by God. Science is made by God. That's how I look at it. If you're religious and you believe in God and whatnot, He made science. You fucking idiot. Why separate science from humanity? It's right in front of your face, dumbass. Do you know what it is? People don't know what it is anymore, and that pisses me off about certain Christians. No offense, it's just some of you people just are stupid. You're not smart. I can't give you a compliment. I have to tell you the truth. You need to smarten up, and one way to do that is to look at things in different ways and have an open mind and believe that science can have a lot to do with God, or he can have a lot to do with science. Common sense says maybe he fucking made it. He created it in the first place. So that being said, I believe that if science is showing us that we started out as Neanderthals and or just a differently shaped kind of human, and we evolved into something greater, something cleaner looking, something that stands tall and not kneeled down forward or bent forward or anything like that with hunchbacks and whatnot, um, which I do believe in. I don't see why we would look the same 2,000 years ago or anything beyond that. I don't see why. Um, and if we were hairier and things like that, and our skulls were shaped differently, I believe that that could be true. And what I think it is that maybe God had made humans that way first, started them out. Now, I don't believe in God making humans with hands, with his hands. I believe he excluded the scientific ways of his spirituality out of the Bible. That's what I believe. But the spirituality in the Bible, why do I believe in it? Because it makes perfect sense. It goes hand in hand with science perfectly. It just simply adds spirituality to the mix. That's it, and it has a name for it. The magic to the science that happens. The name for it is spirituality. That's it. And the Bible is only explaining that aspect of life, and the science of it is something that somehow we're the ones explaining as we go through life. We do the explanation on science. God does the explanation on spirit, holiness, and so forth, cleanliness. And with that cleanliness, it does cause us to evolve, which is fucking amazing. We become cleaner as humans, at least if we follow it correctly. And you know, if you do things in a holy manner, you have a cleaner mindset, and there is less crime and things like that. Nowadays, we're less holy, obviously. So there's more crime and all that. That's just the case. But we do evolve better when we have good righteousness in our heart. So the Bible is completely about that. So I believe that Adam and Eve, the first created humans, which God claims to have created, I believe that they began as something like Neanderthals, or animals, I'd like to say. I truly, truly believe that. In fact, I believe they could have been monkeys. They actually could have been monkeys. You know what's interesting? The reason I believe this is because the Bible said something, and I probably don't understand it fully, but please educate me. Please educate me. I need to know. It mentioned how when they ate of the fruit, and she gave it to everybody else after she had it, she gave it to everybody else. So she had enough intelligence to do that. So that's interesting. She had enough intelligence to share her food, which animals actually do not do. I don't know if monkeys share their food, but I know other animals do not share their food. And I think they had enough intelligence to speak, actually. So I might need to think about this some more. They had some intelligence. They were able to speak. So it seems like they were made perfect, but I do still see them as animals. I just do, because I feel like they're like animals that communicate in a different manner. That's all. Like when dogs bark, we don't know what they're saying, and neither do they, but at the same time, they know what it means. They naturally know what a bark means, and that's how I look at it. They know what different kinds of different kinds of barking actually means. There's only a few kinds. One of hostility, and the other of alarming. Alerting the other dogs that there might be an intruder or some other animal or thing around the territory. But they tend to understand that during different times, and so they do other things, and cats do other little things in their own animal ways, like sniff each other's ass and shit like that. Um, they do that, and they tend to understand the meaning of that, and we don't. We have to use science to get to know what the hell all that's about. So I believe that everybody has their own way of communication, and I just believe God gave humans a natural communication that they knew, and they knew how to speak in that regard. I think they spoke according to the scriptures. I think she talked to the serpent or something like that. And so if they knew how to speak, I think that that's what God did. What he did with cats, he did it with humans. Is gave them the ability, made them animals, but they have a more of a smarter, intelligent ability. Maybe not smarter, but intelligent, which I believe there's a difference between those two words. He gave them more of an intellectual ability, and that's to speak better, to communicate a lot better. And with 5 fingers, you can imagine that we're moving a lot better too than other creatures, and that's how I look at it. I believe we were animals. I call you humans animals every fucking day because you guys are dumb as shit. As dumb as you guys are with all the crime we got going on, yeah, you guys are animals for sure, and it's making sense to me now. But I believe that humans were as animal as it gets when they were first created by God just before she took a bite out of that fruit. I truly believe that. I believe when she took that fruit, and ate of it and gave it to the rest of the people or whatever, to Adam and whatnot. And if they had whoever, I don't know, I believe they gained the ability to be like God. And this is what being like God is having like awareness and knowing right from wrong. And it's amazing. Like it might be something that's a bit overwhelming for a human, but if some of you can handle it, you would understand not only how it's amazing, but you know how to use it. And I believe that's what happened. And even if the Bible, if I'm right, but it's obvious or something, people don't know. People don't know that this is how it happened, and this is how evolution worked. And even if I'm wrong, it's like it's still it can always be complicated to imagine what the Bible is, and it's not my fault. Nobody's explaining shit like this. Nobody's really like in a clever manner connecting the Bible with science. Nobody's doing that, and this is why atheists are not convinced, and this is why Christians are not convinced about science, which is dumber. It's one thing if an atheist is not convinced about the spirit. It takes work to be convinced about God. And plus, it's hard to be convinced about God. It doesn't make sense at first. It makes plenty of sense when you try, when you get into it and you put in the work, if you give a shit, in other words. But if you if you just hear about God, it won't make sense. Everything that you hear about God on a basic level sounds totally unreal. But if you're a Christian and you don't believe in science, you're a fucking idiot. That's all there is to it. You can't be that stupid. You just shouldn't. Because you're interpreting science now. You're misunderstanding what science fucking means. You don't even know what it means now. Man, I can't believe it. I've ran into some Christians who are like that. There are many of them. Please stop them from being so fucking stupid. Make sure they believe in science. Just explain that science is not of the devil. It's not a satanic thing. It's just a name for what what life is. Life altogether, as far as like when something happens and why it happens, that little gap, that little connection right there, that's science. That's science right there. You can call it magic, you can call it whatever you want, but that's science. The science or the magic is what we Christians should believe is made by God. Simple, right there. Made by God. But you're looking at God like in too much of a childish 12-year-old manner when you don't believe in science and you're just calling everything God, God, God. Like we fucking get it. Yeah, it's made by God, but let's be a bit smart here. Let's explain things. Let's give things a certain name for the specifics, and that's how you should be doing it. And that said, I I believe that Adam and Eve, I, I believe they became similar to God, being able to see things. Probably not near his caliber. I understand, but like being able to see things the way that he can see it a bit, at least a piece of this. This is why they say like it's interesting. Our minds. The science also says that we've only tapped into about what less than 10% of the capabilities in our minds. That's freaking amazing. So what's 100%? You know, how much power, energy, and intelligence and strength too, that included, is 100% of your brain. That's insanity, insanity, crazy shit. If that's true, then you'd have to think that this is where we're at. Like, obviously, I believe that process began the moment that she took a bite out of that fruit. And if she had not, our minds would still be like animals. It would just be stable and we'd never evolve. There would be no evolution. There would be no human growth whatsoever. No technology. None of that. We'd just be smarter than every animal in the jungle. But it would be like a stable, steady smart. It wouldn't be, there would be no ability for it to upgrade or downgrade. It would be the same every day. But that fruit changed it all. And that's what I believe. So now it seems to make sense to me so far until someone tells me I'm wrong. Once that fruit had been taken of and it had been eaten and everything like that, it was like humanity had the ability to win or lose at this game of life. The way you want it, however you want to look at life, as a game or just serious, or test or whatever. It truly then just gave us the ability to, like, we entered the game the moment that fruit was taken. So now we have the ability to understand things, to think about things and manage things in our minds, to plan for future events, for really far in the future, to learn lessons, um, to gain wisdom, and to teach. We just have every ability to do much more than just an animal of a human, but something like God, the way I look at it. Something like God. And we are only, even in this day and age, have reached less than 10% of all of that. Of all of that evolution. Think about that. Of all of our evolution, we've only reached less than 10% of it. So what's next? What's at the very end? That being said, I think that after taking a bite out of that fruit, it enabled technology and all of this war and everything good or bad to progress into our future. And here we are. We should be having hovercrafts and flying saucers by now, but here we are, and we have technology and computers, which is amazing. Um, we got all kinds of things that we're able to make. It's like we really are like God. First we were in his image. Now we have like his abilities. It may not be as strong as his, don't get me wrong. Don't be stupid and get me wrong. But we have a taste of it. We're creating things, making life, populating, not just that though, making our own robots and drawing things on paper, creating our own art and things like that. Everything is upgrading within it too, at that. And we are evolving, getting stronger, learning how to fight and creating our own competitions and sports. We have created our own world, creating our own countries and leading them. This is exactly what God actually does. So it's interesting how he had stated these things. He made us in his image, and then he put that. I'm assuming God did it. I mean, I don't know who else could have done it. Why would God do that? I think he intentionally did that. Um, he I think he's just trying to trick us, making us think that he put a fruit there and expected a human not to take a bite out of it. I think he wanted to start this off. That's what I believe. I don't understand why he would do it any other way, but don't take my word for it. Just do your own research and think about it. Um, but I think he expected us to join this game of life after taking the bite out of that fruit, and here we are. And they call it the fruit of life or something. I don't know. It's supposed to make her like God or something like that. And this is starting to make so much sense. And if that fruit is supposed to make her like God, it's not like it's making her like God in an instant, but probably predicting our good future. That when our brains do reach 100%, and not this measly, shitty less than 10% that we're still at, never moving up, but one day it will happen. I'll see to that. When it reaches 100%, I'd imagine we'd be pretty much like God. And probably, you never know, creating our own planets. And you never know what we can do. By that time, I mean, we'd have to be huge. We'd have to be different. We evolved to this. As scientists said, we used to be like probably similar to monkeys. But we took the bite out of the fruit. Not any other creature did. Us. And now we're standing on our feet. We have less fur. And we're super intelligent. I mean, it's only going to keep going up. So this is what I've captured from that little scripture from the Bible. And I don't know anything from the Bible, but whatever I do here, I get a lot from it. And I get a lot from it, tons. Because all I do is think. So, yeah. I believe that there could be a case maybe that we could be like God. You never know. If so, if such a thing ever existed, it'd be when our brains reached 100%. We're less than 10% according to scientists of today. Should that be true information, it'll be a while, and rightfully so. Imagine if anybody was like God in our world, all you evil, savage-ass people. Imagine if any of you cruel faggots were like God. Some of you race baiters, you malists, you feminists, uh, you homosexuals, man. You guys all got problems. So I wouldn't want any of you fags being my God. Hell no. I have nothing against any of you, any of your kinds, at least. But I have everything against you current day people, no matter where you are, who you are, what you look like. You guys are in the wrong mindset, and I can promise our brain will upgrade. Maybe we'll go up a percentage at least within a year if we evolve now. Evolve our laws, but also evolve our feelings and build more love in this life.